Welcome back to another episode of It's Go Time. We're looking forward to this podcast
Oh,
with
really?
the Rocio Cervantes, our in-house divorce attorney.
For all of you.
For all of us.
All of you. If you ever need it. Hopefully you don't. But if you ever do, you know.
No. I've been through one divorce in my life. I don't need to go through another.
Yeah.
Yeah. But welcome to It's Go Time with us at Go Real Estate Group. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And today we have a very interesting topic for our listeners. It is divorce and divorce in real estate. Yeah, and how it affects couples, the dividing of assets and so on during a divorce process. And having an expert like yourself on the podcast today, we can delve a bit deeper and really see what are the issues that people come up with and couples come up with during divorce, and other things that you have seen now in this industry over the past a few years, ever since COVID happened, as well as even prior to that. So first of all, let's give our listeners a introduction about yourself and what made you get into law and what made you get into divorce law of all.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I didn't start there. I ended up here. But no, so Rocio Cervantes, I was born in Mexico. And then when I was 9, the whole family, my whole immediate family, we came over to the United States.
Okay.
And then since then, we've been interacting with this immigration attorney, and I thought she was amazing. I was like, whatever she's doing, I want to do that. And so I think that kind of propelled me to do that. And then Law and Order, Miami Law and Order.
Right.
I was like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Suits.
Yeah. And so I decided that's what I wanted to do from a very young age. And then went to law school, and then from law school came back to Dallas because I went out in Houston. And then I was doing criminal law. That was my first one. Yeah. And it was in Denton. So Denton has a general jurisdiction to practice law out there. Okay. So they take criminal cases, family cases, civil cases, personal injury cases, everything. And so I would be doing my criminal case, and I would see these people, these lawyers, walk in with these huge boxes, like 20 boxes. And I'm like, what are they about to do? They're about to have a hearing. And meanwhile, I had like this small little file with like a CD, a video of my client getting arrested at like CVS for shoplifting. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to try like a family law case. So I did criminal law for a year, loved it, the litigation aspect, helping people, switched over to family. And then the first thing I realized, I was like, oh my God, there's so much like drama that you have to deal with because clients have, they're going through a divorce, a breakup, a custody lawsuit. But no, I loved it. I fell in love with it. Fell in love with helping people, helping kids. The first real big joy was when a dad was like, I haven't seen my kid in 5 years. So we were able to get him visitation.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Been doing it ever since.
Oh, that's fantastic,
yeah,
man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of the challenges you face in Texas regarding different cases that you've come about? What are the commonalities that you generally find between these divorces that generally happen? Is it the man? Is it the woman? Is it a combination? My personal belief, it takes two hands to clap.
Yeah.
So, you deal with different cases all the time. How many years have you been practicing law right now?
I was licensed in 2014.
Okay. So it's been 10 years now?
10 years, a long, long time. I think divorces, whether people want to accept it or not, the majority is it's two people, right? There's one person feels their needs are not being met, but more than likely the other person feels the exact same way.
Right.
And sometimes it just happens because you guys are in different paths. It doesn't have to be something so vicious or bad intentions or someone intentionally did something to you. We obviously have those cases, but a lot of times as people just grew apart in very different directions. Okay. And, they face big things. Like we had one situation where he loves his wife, she loves him from what I understand from his attorney, but he got a great job offer to move someplace else and she doesn't want to move. Her family's here. So he's like, I don't want to stop, progressing in my life and my career and all that, and she doesn't want to come with me. What do we do? And so they decided that the best thing is just to part ways. And so it wasn't a cheating, it wasn't adultery, it wasn't, drugs, alcohol, none of that. It was just at this point in time, he had a different vision for how he wanted to end in his life, and she didn't want to join.
Right.
Okay,
and that's tough.
Interesting. Yeah.
That is tough. Yeah. I think we've talked about it before, how like we see now like divorces increase so much in the last couple of years. And I feel like it's what I've seen a lot is just the first fight, the first misagreement, they're just kind of like, well, we can get a divorce. And it's kind of like an easy way out. And so I feel like that's become, because a lot of times, I mean, our parents, our families from a long time ago, I had never heard of divorce in my family.
Yeah, just taboo.
Exactly. So we kind of like, we were we're going to work it out, right? And so nowadays it's so easy for someone to just give up a relationship, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's a good segue to what you're saying, Yaneli, and good thing for Rosio to maybe give us some insight on it.
Yeah.
So it was told to me, right, during COVID, right, a lot of husband and wife were forced to be in a box together.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so out of their comfort zone that now, being stuck together for one or 2 years, they decided to just call it quits straight after COVID, because this is the man I married, or this is the woman I married, and it's the first time we're spending so much time together, and I don't really like you. I don't know. I mean, have you been seeing a lot of that?
Well, I think it was. So I started my own business pretty much towards the very end of COVID.
Okay.
And it definitely skyrocketed from there. So it was a great launching. I mean, it's sad, right? But it's somebody the divorce lawyers are out here. But what I saw is it's not just necessarily like the husband and the wife are having issues, but COVID lockdown meant you have your kids at home with you.
Of course, yeah.
So now you have husbands that have to work from home that you're not used to. Wives have to probably work from home, and then the children are there too. There's no break. Nobody had, and then there were, from the beginning of COVID, we really couldn't go out. Right? Like restaurants were shut down, or if you did, you had to wear masks. Yeah. It was just a very weird time.
Correct.
You really couldn't see family and friends. So I think all those stresses, the unknowns, those were the catalysts. It's usually a natural disaster or a disaster like that.
Yeah. Can trigger things.
Yeah.
Can trigger a lot of things.
And then even going on like, because you guys are, realtors and you deal with that. Yeah. Buying a house as well can make or break a relationship. I have you, and then you'll be like, you're about to sell this house. These people are going to need a divorce attorney. It's like they're about to buy a house, but she already knows they're probably going to need a divorce attorney. That's crazy. Like you're about to buy a 30-year commitment on this house. And about to end probably another 30-year commitment. It's wild.
And that's the thing, like when there's challenging times, or you're going through something that's very challenging, stressful, or different, like purchasing a home even, people, like, they tend to bring out who they are, or who they, what they want in their house, and sometimes it's different. So they can struggle through that as well when they're purchasing a home. So.
Yeah, I guess all these massive life changes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Remember, in America, the average or most of the average person in America, that home purchase is the largest asset purchase in their life.
Exactly.
So that brings out everybody's emotions, the good side, the bad side, and so on. And I want 4 bedrooms. No, I want 3 bedrooms. Oh no, but I want my mother to live here. Your mother is never living here.
I want to live. Or it's like, I want to live near my mother, who you don't get along with.
Exactly. That's not a good idea.
That is not a good idea. Especially like our Latin parents and stuff. Like, I remember one day my dad's like, "Oh, we're gonna go see your sister." Mind you, she's married to a firefighter, a white firefighter.
Okay.
So he's not used to this, and so I'm like, okay. And so I'm driving over there, and then I call him. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, I'm about to pull up. Did you call her ahead of time? Let her know we're coming?" And he's like, "No." He's like, she's gonna open the door and let us in. I'm like, yeah, but James is probably not gonna like that very much. And of course, he's just like, they want to be prepared for it, but that's Latin families for you. They just invite themselves.
Different cultures. We're like
Different
that
cultures,
too.
yeah.
I give a heads up to my sister.
Frankie, you're just like Indian people.
Yeah.
We just in each other's business
Business.
all the time.
Yes.
Yeah,
How are the
yeah.
kids? How are you guys? Looking in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Stuff all the
Exactly.
time.
Help
But
yourselves.
yeah, a lot of stresses, a lot of reasons. I don't think there's always going to be like a clear reason as to. Sometimes it is like cheating, right?
Right.
But I just feel like there's so many things that people in relationships have to face,
Exactly.
and sometimes they don't have like the tools or the communication or, to get through it, and that's ultimately why we're here.
Right.
But now, is it really your job as the family attorney or the divorce attorney to counsel these couples? Do you try to do it in a way, or do you or reason first? So say someone comes and say, I want to divorce. Do you first reason with them and say, oh, is this the best thing to do? Or are you like gung-ho and say, yes, let's get divorced on any little thing?
So I do tell that to clients. Like, we're technically called counselors of law.
Okay.
Because we counsel you on the law. And
Okay.
sometimes people think they just remember the counselor. You're my counselor. I'm like, no, of your law. But it's hard to separate those two during a meeting because people want you to understand what they've been through.
Right.
So I get it, and I will. And then at some point, we have I bought for my team this nice little cup that they can drink out of, and it says, I'm billing you for this conversation. So if it gets a little too big, too long, I just kind of turn it over and just remind them, like,
We were just talking about that.
because
we were
clients
talking
will
about
call me.
that.
They're like, I'm so sorry for this, for lasting this long. I'm like, you're paying for it. You should not be sorry. But yeah, people need to remember we're not their counselor, and I don't have those tools to tell you how to fix this relationship. I have the tools to tell you how to get through this divorce or through this custody process.
Right.
So it's very different. So yeah, I try to explain that from the beginning, but people are emotional creatures. So
They
especially
are.
during this, they're always seeking for us to counsel them through the process. And we try to keep it very clear, those two. But yeah, it's sometimes they want to blur those lines
For sure.
between those two.
And I think it's just a lot of times they just want to make sure that they're making the right decision,
Yeah.
right? So they're just trying to question it and ask different people what their opinion is so that they can feel more comfortable with moving forward, whether they're going to do with the divorce or whether they're going to start counseling or something like that. And so I think that's a big part of it. Like even counselors, you cannot force somebody else, to attend counseling or anything like that. But at the same time, you have to ultimately make that decision. And so in the real estate stance of it, when people call me and they're like, hey, I'm about to get a divorce and we're going to have to sell the property, but my spouse may or may not want to, I tell them it's cheaper to contact me than an attorney just because I can tell you how this is going to go down and I can tell you like numbers and things like that so that you at least it can sink in and you can think about it rather than like just going back and forth and making ideas of maybe what you think your house is worth, but it's not being realistic. And a lot of times too, these divorces take so long that I can run a comp analysis for Rosio like a year before, but then it takes so long that we have to run another one as we get closer because it's not accurate anymore.
Yeah, and going back on what you just said, the emotional aspect of it, like we'll have clients where, if they just bought a house and it's within like the same year and now they're going through a divorce, a lot of times it might be more beneficial for one spouse to keep it because having to sell it and then go through that, they might actually be losing more money. And you might tell that to a client, but they'll be like, well, then I want to keep it. And then everybody wants to keep it. And I'm like, well, you both can't keep it. Someone's got to sell it.
Yeah.
And so then there's that emotional, they're like, I'd rather lose the money than have her keep the house.
And it's emotion, sentiment. It's a whole bunch of things.
What's the percentage of that happens that somebody says, I want to keep the house? And
I feel like the majority of everyone wants to keep the house. Or they either want to keep the house or they want to sell it. But it's lesser few people will say, she can stay in the house or he can stay in the house. They just, I don't know. And I don't know why they want that house so much. Like you would think you want to burn the house up, like, get rid of it with the memories. But no, I'm like, you really want to live in the house and then bring in I don't know if that's
and I think it's a big thing now because we see the appreciation that has happened in homes. So it's like, they can see how
that
much
might be
equity
it
it has. So it's like it's really hard for them to kind of let that go, because I think a lot of times it's just like, okay, I've already lost my marriage. I don't want to lose like the financial exactly.
And then like the interest rates are getting
exactly.
they're like, I don't know what it's gonna be tomorrow.
And then when you open your firm, the interest rates were so low at that point that the more that the more time that I was taking up, like now interest rates are so high that's why these people are not wanting to either sell or when they're getting a divorce, they want to stay with the property because they want to keep that
low interest rates.
But then you also got kids sometimes.
Yeah.
So say that's the only house the kids grew up in. So sometimes they want to keep it for the kids.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that can go wrong in that. Like sometimes women, if I represent men or women, right? Sometimes they are the lesser of the two parents that make income, and so I'll have to have a real conversation with them. Like, can you even afford this house? Exactly. Well, this might be a 4 or 5 bedroom home, and you might have to downsize.
Exactly.
Right.
Because then I tell them, well, you haven't been married for 10 years, so you're not going to get spousal support. So how are you going to, and they're like, I'll come up with it. Man, you don't want to put your kids at that, okay? You want to have a plan right now.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be realistic with what you think you can do, because the loan officer's not going to be like, oh, you're thinking about it? Okay, call me back in a month. You don't have to think about it. They're going to put a foreclosure on your door.
For sure. Yeah.
So sometimes they can't even do that, or they can't refinance to even remove someone's name. Like, if you want to keep that home, there's so many things that the court expects you to do for you to actually keep it. And one is to like refinance it by yourself. And sometimes you can't even do that.
Does it have to be by yourself? Like when you're going through marriage?
You can refinance it and include other people like co-signers.
Okay.
You can do that.
Because we've had a couple of clients. I think when we worked that deal that we had, there was a spouse and he was just like, I refuse to move, whatever. So we were sending him to like the lender so that he can see if he could, refinance the home so that he can keep it. He had horrible credit because a lot of times people also like, they mess up their credit where they're going through divorce. So, of course, he didn't qualify for it. And so I've seen that a lot where they actually, once they're seeing the numbers, they realize they cannot afford it. It's just, it's going to be too much of a payment for them to pay off their spouse.
So, Rosio, what do you normally see in the courthouse? I mean, the judge, where does it favor? For assets to be sold and then distributed, or one keeps the other?
Yeah, I think...
Is it case by case?
It is case by case. There is some influence where the county you're in, what particular judge. The judges have a lot of flexibility. The law calls it their discretion when it comes to giving like an uneven division of the community estate. But a lot of times, a lot of judges definitely don't want to burden anybody, right? Okay. So if somebody's name is still on there and somebody wants to keep it, the judge will put in a clause, and we'll obviously request it if the judge doesn't put it in there, where if somebody wants to keep it, they need to refinance. If not, within 6 months of them trying to refinance, it has to be sold. Okay, because if not, you guys know, and a lot of people don't know this, if they don't do that and that person later wants to go buy another house, even though their name is, the decree says that the wife has 100% ownership, the loan is still under both of your names.
Exactly. Yes.
And so when you go and they run the numbers, they're like, you don't qualify. There's a huge loan already tied to you. So people need to understand that, because sometimes they say, I'll leave her the house. That's fine. I'm like, can she refinance? They're like, she doesn't have to do that. I'm like, do you have plans in the next like year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to get a house? Yes. Well, you're not going to be able to, just from what you're telling me about your income. Exactly. And so those are tough conversations to have for people. Like I always want to tell people the best news in the world, but that's not realistic, and I don't want to just get people to hire me based off of these fluffy promises. I want to tell you the real thing. So, no, but in court, generally, judges will want to sell the property if people can't reach an agreement. So, hard truths.
No, that makes sense. And I did, so I had it wasn't really a friend, but it was a friend of a friend who had already had a divorce. It was already finalized, and it was so crazy to me. So she said that on the divorce decree, I never saw it, but she said it said that he was going to keep the property. Or no, she was going to keep the property. But he gave her about $20,000 because they had just purchased the home. They didn't have much equity. But he basically gave her $20,000 for her to move out, and so he can bring this new girlfriend to stay at the property, right? So then
But then it comes back to what Rosio was saying. Why would you want that?
But the crazy
I
thing
hope you
is,
changed the bed.
so she wanted to buy another property, right? So I'm like, okay, so you have to take your name off of that property that you have. So the normal way to do it is basically the divorce decree. The attorneys at the title company, they'll review it so that they make sure that they're doing it the right way. So I was like, just take your divorce decree. I didn't know what the divorce decree said or this whole agreement. I just basically said, the first conversation was like, take your divorce decree to the title, and then they'll kind of guide you to what the best thing is. Well, I don't know what went on or what was communicated with them. She was never really my client, but at the end of the day, she calls me like a few months later. She's like, hey, Yaneli, title changed the house to my name. And now my ex-husband is so mad at me and the new wife was mad at her because apparently title just did what the divorce decree said, which was to change it to her name. So it was such an odd situation, but I was just like, really? So
then she now legally owned the house.
But the thing is, if you have a divorce decree, and that's what I was going to ask you, if you have a divorce decree that says this has to be done, and then they do kind of their kind of back end, another agreement between that is just so weird that they did that.
Right. And that's fine. But yeah, the title company was completely in the right, because if they were to do something different from what a court order says, the other side, the people could have always come back and sued them. So it makes sense they're like, I don't care what a verbal agreement you guys have, but we're not going to get sued. Right. So I think that's, and I always tell people, if you have a different agreement, you got to go back to court and we got to modify the original agreement, because a lot of these third-party agencies are not going to go based off of just your verbal agreement.
Right.
So it's very interesting. People,
they do that.
Yeah.
I guess they were mad at each other during the divorce. They got this divorce decree, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll make it friendlier, and made their own agreement, but never went back to modify the decree. So that's
and she probably started eviction process the very next day. She's like, since I'm your new landlord here.
You need to evict in the next 30 days. I like that.
And that wasn't really her plan. She was just like, I don't want the house, but it was kind of funny how things happen. And I was like, well, if that's what your divorce decree said, then obviously whatever attorney you take it to, that's what they're going to do.
Or she can work a deal with them and they can pay her rent or whatever for living in that house.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways to cut it. I think, Rosio, one of the questions we had for you was, explain to us the difference between separate and marital property within the spectrum of divorce, and how it affects couples during a divorce process.
Yeah. So that's really the first characterizing property is one of the first things we have to do. Correct. So I get kind of a general overview of what people have. Yeah. So when they come in, we explain them that. I say, before you got married, did you purchase any kind of real property? What that means, land. Did you purchase any houses, just random acres out there, anything like that? And if they say yes, then we say that's your separate property. That's yours unless you've done something different with it and changed title or sold it or something during the marriage, but that's yours. And if you came into the marriage with that, that's still yours. Now, we also say if you repaired it during the marriage, if you've made reparations, fixed it, if it looks a lot better now, that's community money that was probably put into it that will have to come out as well.
Okay.
But the house or the acres stay with you.
But what if it changes the value of the house? So say hypothetically they take $50,000 from the joint account now after married to fix up house A, right? And the value goes up. So how do you calculate?
The increase in value would be a community benefit. So that'd be for the community.
So if he bought it initially for $300 and now the value is for $50, that's split in the middle.
And we were talking about that too. We have a lot of people, that have now Airbnbs. Yeah. And so they have some little rental properties. So if you had that before the marriage, great. That's during the marriage, that's going to stay yours. But that rental income that you're receiving every month is going to be shared in the community and divided up. And but that's only going to happen up until you get divorced. Then it's your separate money, your separate rental. But really, the community, anything that's in the community is things that were bought during the marriage. So as soon as you tie the knot and you say I do's, from that point forward, the car that you bought by yourself belongs to your wife. The house that you bought by yourself belongs to your significant spouse. Yeah. Anything. Clothes, anything. So I try to explain it in the sense any money you earn from that point forward, 50% of that is your spouse. And then so if you're investing that into something without your spouse, technically you're also investing their money.
Okay, so question, right? If you've dealt with a client and you've conducted the divorce for them, and now they tell you, hey, Rosio, I found a new significant other and I want to marry them. Do you put them down the path if they are very asset rich to get a prenup signed and all
Oh,
that?
yeah. Yeah, we do. Prenuptial agreements. It's
Okay.
actually grown in popularity because I think a lot of celebrities have come out with prenups in the
prenups.
media. Kim Kardashian had a prenup. Kelly Clarkson had a prenup, and she was able to kick her husband out of some big old ranch and stuff, and so that made big news. So that's coming out. Kevin, I think his name is Kevin Costner. He had a huge prenup. He kicked his wife out of his multi-million-dollar home. So they're very popular now.
And do you
And
recommend
it's-
it for most people?
Yes, I do. If you have assets, I do. Especially if you're saying, like, the other side, our goal is that everybody's going to have separate income. We don't have an intention to commingle our assets. It's very important to get a prenuptial agreement. And we even have some clients that it's like, this is more the typical scenario where you have a very wealthy client marrying someone of little to no money. You know, maybe they're young and they're just starting out in their
Right.
career. And so this is kind of just a safeguard. And I always tell them, like, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 3 years, in 2 months, if you really trust this person enough, or if you want them to kind of be in your businesses at this point, we can go ahead and amend it, and we can rescind the contract, the prenuptial agreement.
Yeah.
But for right now, you know, it's a safety. It's just like life
Yes,
insurance,
right.
right?
Correct, yeah.
You don't know
Yeah.
when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen, but it's there if it does happen.
How do they react when they get like?
Well, I never really like to have both of them in my, but people love to, like, can I bring her in? I'm like, you know, I really don't think that's a good idea. And they're like, well, she's right outside. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and I explain, I'm like, I can't represent both of you, so she's
Right.
going to have to talk to somebody. But
Okay.
I give them, like, a general overview of what the prenup is. And then usually I'm like, I'm going to leave you guys to talk because I can see it's just not a pretty thing to talk about. No
Yeah.
one's like,
There's
yeah,
some
I
tensions
love
Yeah.
it.
going on.
It's just not. You
No,
know?
but then don't you get the feeling that, okay, are they getting married for love? Or, I mean, if it really becomes awkward and everything in that meeting.
I think it's also because, you know, some men marry women that the agreement they have is, I'm going to be the homemaker. And that's a job too, but it's not a job that pays.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's not like the husband comes home and says, thanks for taking care of the kids. Here's the money as my daycare, you know, person. He doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So she's here. Her bank account is not growing. Her skill sets are not growing. Her connections in the business world is not growing. And I'm just saying women because, you know, women are genuinely the homemakers, but there's men as well. And when they get divorced, he's got 10 years experience. He's probably now a CEO of something. So if he were to start another job, he's making $100K plus easy. If she starts her job, she's probably working at a grocery store.
Okay.
You know, and her uphill is so much heavier. So I think prenups are hard sometimes for those reasons, for people
Right.
that have good intentions, but they're not both career driven that way.
Yes. Okay.
So they're hard. And sometimes prenups are for people that are in businesses together, and it's to protect a business. It's not even for any other reason except for they have, usually these are like post-nuptial agreements,
Yes.
where they're like, if something happens, if our businesses get sued, can we start a post-nup agreement? Because my husband is more likely to get sued, like doctors and stuff. And so doctors have a lot of post-nuptial or prenuptial agreements. So
Okay,
that
I've
if-
heard of the post up. I just never really looked into
Yeah.
it. So that's how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that if they do get sued, their personal assets don't get
Don't get
touched.
touched.
So sometimes it's for financial, beneficial reasons like that. It's not even because of anything. But no, I think it's just not pretty. It's not a pretty thing to talk about.
Yeah.
So
So what happens to the couples that have been together for a long time but never actually tied the knot? Like, is that because Texas is like a community state? So how does that count like an actual marriage?
yeah, it really does. And then this.
How? I'm in shock by just
Yes.
that question. Wait,
Yes.
if you don't go in front
Yes.
of the judge and say I do,
Yes.
okay, so the
He's about to kick out all his girlfriends.
Yeah.
Get out of the house. All of you.
What? Talk to me about
No,
this,
no.
please.
And this affects.
Dawood, this is for you.
No, so in Texas, there's a common law marriage. So which basically means is if you had the intent to live together with someone as husband and wife, and you represented to others that you are a husband and wife, so you acted like
But
this.
what if you never called each other husband and wife?
But you don't necessarily have to call yourselves, but if you're filing taxes as husband and wife,
Oh,
if you're
okay,
signing
okay. If you
documents,
start commingling
exactly.
that way, okay.
if she's like, "Hey, hubby," and you're like, "Hey, wifey," because you think it's cute, you know, like stay away from those nicknames. Yeah, don't sleep in the same bed and stuff. Just no, but they can affect it because let's say somebody starts living with someone and they are not married,
Exactly.
but they're living together like as husband and wife, and then they buy a house. Right, but there's no documents. So in those situations, we have to go to court and prove not only is it common law marriage, but then the inception of when this occurred is very important.
Okay.
Because if I tell them, if we prove that you guys were common law married before you bought the house, you're out of luck because he bought it in his name.
Okay.
So we have to
Yeah.
prove that you guys were common law married before he bought that house under his name or under her name, so we can share it. So sometimes it's very important that they have documents, but some women have receipts. They're like, all right, let me here's the bills for 10 years ago.
We're really good
Here's
about
the
that.
text messages.
Yes. We are good about that.
These men just don't save that stuff, but women save the momentum. Like this is the ticket for the movie theater. This is when he like, you know, like
There's a $10 here.
they're scrapbooking their entire relationship, and they pull out those scrapbooks, and then you have it. But so it's you know, and the wildest thing is that the legislature in Texas has never defined how long you have to live with somebody.
Oh, so it could be for a
okay.
couple of months, and you
See,
and you done.
I was thinking it
Yes.
was like 6 months or something
No,
like that.
No.
But
there's
there's
no,
not. Wow,
there's not
I
even a
didn't know
minimum
that.
date. There's not a minimum date. So that's up for the judge's discretion as well.
Yeah.
So when people are like, but it was only like
Yeah.
3 months, 6 months. I'm like, yeah, but did you start calling her my wife within the first month? Like, you're in trouble.
Wow.
I always thought it was 6 months.
Yeah,
One week
I
or 2
know.
weeks.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
So it is. And then you have the issue of the houses,
Yeah.
and I think that affects it because I have a lot of women where I'll tell them that, and they have like 5 kids, they've never signed documents. The husband bought the house, and they're like, I'm not, you know, I don't have anything because I'm not married to him.
Yeah.
And so then we talk to them about common law
Exactly.
marriage, and they're like, you mean I can get the house? I'm like, you can't sell the house.
I think a lot of people don't have a full understanding of that. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, even if you're not on title, even if you're not, I mean, it is a community state. So you do have, you know,
You have those rights.
yeah,
straight
ownership
away.
rights. Exactly.
Ownership
Yes.
rights.
So single men, single women out there, don't use
Don't
those.
fool. Okay, yeah, don't use those terms.
Don't use those terms.
Don't use hubby,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
use wifey.
Don't
if
use
you're not
that.
married.
Always reinforce, hey, I'm a single man, per taxes.
girlfriend. You can say
You're my
girlfriend.
Right now, Rosio, what are you seeing? Are you seeing more men wanting to divorce wives, or wives wanting to divorce men? Well, what is
Yeah.
the case ratio for you? Right now?
You know, I think it surprises people, but women are the ones that are the majority of the filings are women. Women will be the ones to pull the gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's just like an emotional thing. I always say like men may get rejected like in the beginning of a relationship. Women feel like they get rejected towards the end of a relationship. So, and part of that is like a lot of women are more in the sense like emotionally complex. And so I feel like we have more needs than a man to be met, right? A man just like, just respect me, you know, and treat me good, give me peace. Women are like, okay, I need you to do this, talk to my friends nicely, talk to my mom nicely. Like, you know, we have like a lot of things that we have expectations on. So because of that, men are more likely to fail a woman unintentionally sometimes.
Yeah.
And women, for that reason, will pull the trigger and follow.
Okay, so how do you manage to keep yourself unbiased? So say you get a man client that
Yeah.
walks in, and you know he's an absolute infidel or whatever.
Yeah.
He's a scumbag of whatever sort. But how do you defend that? And do you bring in your woman's rights and all good to
Yeah.
feminism or
I mean,
whatever it is?
No, I definitely, I'm not there to judge. The only part when
But
I
do you judge?
only to tell them like this action right here is going to damage your case.
Okay,
So you
okay.
need to stop that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
These text messages that are vile to her or that are vile to him, those need to stop, right? We can't be texting and saying I'm going to kill myself to say it in an attention-seeking manner, because then you're going to get the kids taken away. So don't say that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So so I judge
you
in
become a
that
crazy
aspect.
person, yeah.
I judge to help somebody during their case, but no, we represent men and women. I think even right now, it's more 60% of our clients are men and 40% are women. And that's just, I think I took too many like Father for Equal Rights cases, and then they just started like here, take all of these. No, but we represent both. My brother is a single dad, and so we're working a custody right now. We got a custody order for him. So I feel for both sides of it, you know. And I think both people there's things that they can do to fix it for the benefit of the children, right? My goal is, let's do everything we can to get you in the best position so that it doesn't affect you or your child or your kids.
Yes.
But no, I mean, we'll step. Yeah, I'm not here to really judge you. No.
Okay,
But
good.
deep inside, you're like,
Sometimes I'm like, why? Why? You know, I had one where it was like a guy client, and he comes and he's like, sends me pictures, and he's like, I want to take the child because look at the house in the condition that it is in. And you were telling me some people, you know, they're not really organized in their house, and this was like clutter, like I don't even know how. It was like a hoarder's kind of show, you know. So I saw these pictures and I told them, okay, so I was like, who cleans the house? He's like, she does. My wife cleans the house. And I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't look like she's cleaned the house. But I'm like, is she the only one that cleans the house? He's like, yeah. I'm like, so if we go to court, and I had to tell him, you need to start cleaning the house. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because if I go and say, Judge, look at the condition that the child's living in, the judge is like, two adults live in there. So if your wife's not picking it up, you have to pick it up.
Yes.
So those are the conversations we have to have with people, and they're not comfortable at all to have. And sometimes I feel like they get upset, but then I have to remind them why I'm saying this.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
I've got 10 years experience. A judge is going to be pissed off if I show them this and say how dirty the mom is. The judge is going to be like, how dirty both of them are.
They're both living in the property.
They're both living there.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's we were talking about something like that. We have like, you know, there's a house on the market. We've gone into situations where it's not well taken care of, because the person that's living in the property usually is the one that does not want to move out of the property, because, you know, their mortgage payment, even though they're paying for it, it's a lot lower than it would be if they would leave and rent somewhere else. So sometimes they make it very difficult for us to show, for, you know, for the house to be presented well. So a lot of times, unfortunately, if they cannot come to an agreement of how to get the house looking for the market or anything like that, then we have to sell it to investors, where investors, they don't really care about the condition of the home. However, you're losing a little bit of money when we're doing that. So we're here, like a lot of times, I want to have these consultations up front with them before they even get to the point where they have to decide who's going to stay with the house or what they want to do, so that they can see the perspective and they can see what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, so basically the conditions of a house not only affect what you're going to get back in a sale, but it can also affect your custody lawsuit. Like, we'll have two separate homes, and somebody is sure the other side's home is not safe at all, and so CPS will send CPS out there. They'll make an investigation. They'll take pictures. Just make sure like you stay organized. And if you can't, like, so, you know, you're not Superwoman. We're not Superman. Sometimes we're literally working so many hours. I get it, but you can call a cleaning service for $25 and be like, come out and
clean it up.
They'll take care of it.
But you see, I think sometimes there's so many emotions involved in it. So like the value of homes, the value of assets. Like one spouse, it might have been such a bad breakup where it was like, I don't care if the house.
We had that case. Remember?
We had that. We went to talk to this guy, and it was probably until about 6 months before the actual divorce decree happened or whatever. We went to talk to him, and we wanted to get him as much money for his property. And we were like, hey, we just want to make sure that you know that your house has been ordered to sell during this property partition. So, you know, these are the comps. This is how much you can sell it for. This is what I recommend. However, we need access to the property, because when we have them, you know, sign our contract, it does say, like, we need to be able to show the property, allow potential buyers to come in. And he was just being very difficult, remember? I mean, he just saw Frank, and he was like, oh, I don't like you.
What?
Yeah. He was just really,
he was very
really upset.
Maybe
everything I said was like if I was trying to fight him or argue with him. But I was just being, because he was like that with her.
He was like that,
He was like that. So I jumped in, and I was being more aggressive towards the way I was talking to him.
Yeah.
in a professional way, right?
There's also a lot of distrust too, so they don't
Yeah.
even know, like,
Yeah.
are you having a better conversation with the significant
Exactly,
other?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so
That
they,
was it.
they're just very
I'm sure that's what it had
distrustful
to do.
Yeah.
of everybody, you know. And so I always tell clients, like in the very beginning, like, I'm gonna send you the emails that I send to the other side, because that's gonna build trust
Exactly.
between you
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because people will say, like, oh my, I have a feeling he's gonna he's gonna try to buy out the judge and buy out the I'm like,
That
man, he
cannot
makes
happen.
like $50,000.
Yeah.
He's not gonna buy out anybody, okay?
Yeah.
But that just tells you how much distrust they have.
Okay, yeah.
And so I also have to build that trust, just like you
Yeah,
guys have
yeah.
that. I also have to build that trust with them.
I had a conversation
do.
with him. I told him, look, I'm not here for her. I'm not here for you. I'm here to do what the judge said to do.
Yeah.
I'm here to make you guys as much as possible. I know you guys already have to split that part. I want for you to
Maximize it.
maximize
Maximize whatever they're
I'm like, so I'm not
getting.
here to be your
Yeah.
friend. I told him, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to invite you out to coffee or anything. And
Yeah.
I gave him that conversation like in a very blunt way, like in a professional way, right?
Yeah.
But I was straightforward. And after that, he was
fine.
he was
Yeah.
calling me back immediately. Hey, what do
Aw,
you need? Yeah,
that's good.
he turned into a different person. But
Yeah.
I had to be very blunt with him.
Very firm with
Yeah.
him. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like, we have to build trust as well.
have
And
to,
so
yeah.
we have to, honestly, like, when, you know, we were doing stuff together, I was like, we have to literally, whatever we're telling one party, we have to tell it to the other. And we have to make sure that
Full
both parties
transparency,
are
yeah,
aware.
yeah.
It's all about transparency at the end of the day, because our goal is really to get you the most out of your property, because you deserve that. We want you to have as much money as you can from that property, because that's going to allow you to move on and have
Exactly,
a life
yeah.
from, you know, after divorce. However, if you're not willing to trust us in the, you know, and kind of go through the process with us, it's very, very difficult. And a
feel
lot
bad.
of it is,
Aw.
and a
I
lot
feel
of times
bad,
it's
yeah.
mistrust. I feel like a lot of, I mean, it was, you know, Hispanic culture that
Yeah.
we're like that sometimes, you know, we kind of get attached to things, and he felt like he could control things.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just not the reality. And so what we're wanting to do is just kind of help you to avoid any other further like legal fees that you
issues
can
and
have
try
or
to
anything
come
like
about,
that.
yeah.
So, you know, it took him months.
Yeah, it took a month. We were
literally
like,
took
To
him
warm
months.
up to you?
Yeah.
That's a-
yeah.
Yeah.
But finally, towards the end, like the week before closing, he was calling me and be like, "Hey, you guys
Yeah.
helped me out and this and this and that."
Aw.
I was like, "Yeah, it was just like it was something that sucks. It's
Yeah.
I don't like doing it, right?
No.
But
Yeah.
it's something that has to be done."
And we got it so pretty quickly. I think
Yeah.
it went under contract within
Like,
the first 2 weeks,
yeah.
so we got it done.
Not
And
even
he
that.
was
It was
just like,
quicker than that.
and I think it just takes the weight out
Yeah.
of their shoulders
Yeah.
too. It's like, okay, now I can kind of move
Yeah.
on. Why was I even fighting for this?
Yeah,
right?
you guys are probably the last, because a lot of times we'll get the divorce. People think you have to sell the house before marriage, before you go through the divorce process. You don't.
Yeah.
You can sell it before, during, or even afterwards. But so sometimes, a lot of times when
Yeah.
we do the documents, it's like the house is going to be sold, we're done.
Right.
And so the emotional still goes on with you guys
Yeah.
until
Until it's that. So it's kind of funny, because it doesn't put an end, like the divorce decree doesn't really bring an end, because
Yeah.
a lot of times people are still stuck because of the properties that they
Yes.
share together.
Does it not give you a timeline? Doesn't the decree
well, it
say
says
within
just to list it.
Just to
Like
list
it has to be listed within a certain period of time, but you
Okay,
don't know
okay.
when it'll sell. You know, and unfortunately, sometimes it's right now. I feel like it's taking a
a little longer?
a little
sell?
longer.
It could,
So-
especially if it's a home that's not like updated. It's a newer home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times it does take longer, and also like it's not just the financial responsibility of the person that's staying with the property, but like a lot of times, if let's just say the wife stays in the property, they're not maintaining the home, and so unfortunately, if the longer it takes, you know, the value of the
it
home
brings
starts
down, yeah,
dropping.
it starts dropping,
So even though
reducing.
like, and it's really hard to explain, because even though they hear in the news, yes, appreciation is going up. I'm like, I understand that. However, your home, you're not taking care of it. There's things that need, you know, that wear and tear that needs to be replaced, and they don't do it. And so unfortunately that affects the value of the home. And at the end of the day, the longer it goes, you know, without getting an offer, without selling it, they end up losing more
making
money
it
that
worse
way.
and worse, so, yeah.
Exactly. So that's just one of the things I've seen that. And so a lot of times, okay, so let's just say, you know, you have the divorce decree, we put it up for sale, but somebody's making it difficult, or, you know, we've had to like file some enforcements. How do those work?
So many things, can go wrong and do go wrong, even after we have a decree that says the house has to be sold. We literally have had to take a case before back to court because the woman inside the house, he was like, you know, for the showing, it was
Yeah.
a realtor. It was like, she's actually damaging the inside of the house. Like, she was very spiteful. So I was like, can
Yeah.
you please sneak some pictures? Go in there and take some pictures. And yeah, she did. And so we were able to. But you'll have that, or the more traditional one is like someone is delaying a showing or making it difficult, so the house is staying on the market longer, and that's typically because they're in the house until it sells, and they don't want to let it sell.
Right.
So that's always kind of hard. Usually the way we combat it is if you stay in the house, you pay the taxes, you pay the repairs, because that will put a fire under you to get it sold. Because if not, you're just sitting comfortably while your other person is paying half of the rent. Like, you're good.
And we see a lot of that happening, unfortunately, where people are just very comfortable and they don't want to move out, so they just kind of prolong the process. And I think we talked about it. I did this. It was through another attorney, but they were sharing like the property. I don't know. You called it. There's a legal term for it, where he was going in a week and then she was going in another week.
Yeah. The nest. It's called nesting.
Yeah. So basically,
it's called nesting.
It's kind of the nesting.
Can I have the house?
So,
I got a date.
No, but it was the same
do
thing.
this.
It was the same
Yeah,
thing.
but then they trashed the house before
You clean it.
That's
Like,
exactly. I mean, I don't even know how that works and why that exists, honestly, because I could see like every week he would go in there and the place was trashed.
I think I know what you're talking about.
He would take me he was send pictures, and I was like, oh my God, like an investor's going to end up buying your property because there's no way that it could be sold to a traditional buyer just because of the condition that it's in. And like she would block the driveway with just a bunch of cars, leave like wrecked cars in the driveway or in front of the house. So it was just a horrible experience. And at the end, I'm just like, why are you guys doing this? This is hurting your pockets. I don't know what you're trying to do. You're not just hurting your spouse, you're hurting yourself at the end of the day.
And then they come back to me, and then they like, Rocio, I'm having problems. And I like come back into the office, and then we got to go back to court, because I tell them like the judge has to find out about this, and the judge will give us a ruling. If the other side is doing something bad, as long as you have clean hands, you're not also doing bad things, because a lot of people think, well, if she's doing this, I'm gonna do this.
Exactly.
Don't do that. If somebody is doing something bad and you have clean hands, then we can go back to court. You'll get attorney fees. You can put them in jail. There's a lot of things that you can get back, right? You can get, like I had one person that she was supposed to refinance and do all this. And until then, she was supposed to make the timely payments and she didn't. And so it was hitting his credit score. Oh, wow. And we were able to bring in somebody that deals with that to say like what this was obviously costing him and put a dollar amount to it. And he was able to get made whole again because he had to fix his credit. And so he had to get an expert to do that and all that. So yeah, don't fall to the pettiness of it.
I was gonna say it's pettiness.
Yeah,
just
at the end of the
but
day.
you see again, it's emotion. So it comes from one of these. I mean, I had so many questions, but we were answering it as we were going along. But how do you navigate that emotional aspect with you need to do this because of this and that? I mean, do you educate them in a way, or I mean, are emotions just running too high at that time? Because right now, eventually you have to get both parties to have a logical cap on and to say, okay, we need to do this, right? Whether it be sell the property, do this, that with the asset, and remove emotions from it completely. Or is it always the judge has to put his hammer down and say, no, you have to do it?
No, we do. I do. So in the very beginning, I think it's about setting the right expectations. I'm sure you guys do it too. And especially if you're going to start some kind of, even like, it's just like a typical relationship. You guys have relationships with your clients as a professional one, right? So you're setting boundaries with those people. You're setting like, these are the expectations of what you can expect. Same thing with them. I'm like, this is a client-attorney relationship. It goes both ways. So I tell them from the beginning, like, we're not going to the goal is to not present anything that seems petty to a judge, right? If she forgot to return the kids with his tennis shoes that you sent him, we can't go to court for that. And then I tell them why, because all that costs money.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So, and yes, if she's sending you nasty text messages, you can go to court and it's going to cost you money. Or you can press block. Yes, right? Yes. And you could unblock when it's time to exchange the child. But so there's cheaper alternatives. So really my expectations to them is, we will go to court for anything if you tell me to go to court for it, right? But if it's against what I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of attorney fees that you're spending just to go fix it.
Exactly.
And so usually the monetary situation will calm them down and bring them back to reason, right? Because they'll be emotional. I'll say, okay, we'll do all this, but then you got to put in another $4,000. Like, whoa! I was like, I mean, the judge is going to charge you, the clerks are going to charge you.
Everybody.
Somebody has to pay to keep the courthouse open. So.
And a lot of time, I think we've walked into situations and we've spoken to them, and they're like, okay, well, like, but you're going to force them, right? And I'm like, no, we cannot force anything. Like, at the end of the day, you both are agreeing that you want to sell the house, but we're not forcing anybody to do anything. Like, if honestly, I can come to you, and if you want to sell the house, that's fine, but I need him to also agree to sell the house. Otherwise, I'm not hired. I cannot even come into the situation unless both and all parties sign my contract and agree that this is what you both want to do. At the end of the day, if he's in disagreement, then you have to take it, to court, because there's nothing that we can do. Like, at that point, we just walk away.
The judge can.
The judge will be the force. We present the motions for the judge to put in the force.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they do.
People just need to be a little patient, right? Because sometimes, like, she did something wrong, and you want the other side to be disciplined right then and there. It doesn't work like that in the real world as adults, right? As kids, like, they do something wrong, you spank them right then and there. You're like, no.
You can't spank an adult.
We can't spank it, especially your ex. That's battery, and you'll go to jail. So don't do that. But there is a process for it.
Maybe they wanted to get spanked. Who knows?
Reconciliation? No.
Okay, I got a scenario for you, right? So, what happens if there's a divorce proceeding going on? Husband and wife are getting divorced, but during the divorce, say 20 days prior to them filing the motion, I want to divorce you and whatever, they enter into a contract to buy a house.
Okay.
And that house closes during the divorce proceedings. It's a rental property. It's either a commercial strip center. What happens then? Have you come across a case like that? Have you dealt with something?
What
similar?
happens in the sense, like, what is it going to be?
What happens to that property? What happens to that real estate?
So you're saying they're married and they filed for a divorce, and in the middle of a divorce they close on a commercial property.
Together.
Yeah, we got to figure out how to what do
Oh,
you guys
not
wanna
together
do?
sometimes. So say it's just
He's
limited liability.
And they do that. And I'll tell
it's the
clients,
husband
don't, like, you can buy, during the divorce, you can still live your life. You can go buy groceries, but you can't be buying Lamborghinis. Okay. Once you file for divorce, you can't be making these large purchases. Do not go out and buy a house, because if you do, because sometimes that does happen where people will separate. The divorce process could take a year, and in that period of time, they move in with their new lady and they buy a house, and then I have to tell them, okay, now we have to take that house and put it back into the equation. They're like, but why?
It's back to community property at that point, right?
Yeah.
Unless they put it under the
I've
masseuse's name.
had a lot of our, and unfortunately, like, even a lot of our,
Don't do that.
no. A lot.
Do they follow the money?
They follow the
They
money.
do.
Yes. And that's a
okay.
good point too, because people are always like, Rosio, he just withdrew so much money, or a house will close in the middle of like, he'll have a separate property, he'll have a community house. Somehow he will have sold it in the middle of a divorce process. I think fraudulently. And I told my client, do not worry, because he had to be deposited somewhere. The money had to be deposited somewhere. We're going to just follow the money, where the money went. So, or people are like, he withdrew $90,000. I'm like, don't worry. We can just follow. The fact that he just withdrew it, we already knew there was that money there, right? So there's always, thankfully, a paper trail with regard to that.
Wow. Yeah. That makes
Interesting. Yeah, I had to throw that out there. Yeah.
I feel like you give me a lot of, like, fact-specific ones, and you're just like, I have a friend. And I'm like, is this friend you? Is this you?
No, it's not me.
No.
No. It's not me. No, I'm just so I was doing some research before you came.
Okay.
And I was just thinking of different scenarios people might face during divorce. As I told you, I'm a divorcee now. I'm happily married with 3 other kids.
Oh, very nice.
So it's I mean, what I went through in a divorce compared to other people, it's always different.
Yeah.
It's always different. And it's just how could we bring this full circle within our spectrum of real estate and see what clients, or because I also advise in wealth management and everything, is ask, how do you protect assets from this? Okay, how do you you say trust, irrevocable trust, and so on, and we always advise our clients to do that, get a proper will signed up or whatever. But at the same time, we dealing with sometimes a much higher net worth client than maybe some of your cases and so on. But again, it always comes back to the fundamental point that real estate asset is generally the largest purchase between the couple,
Right.
or between anything. And on a business side, so say you have all these investment properties and you have like 50 residential rental properties and so on, but majority of it was bought prior to the marriage. Okay, how do you protect that now against maybe you have the 60-year-old client and he's just found this 23-year-old gold digging model, and okay, what do we advise? What do we do? What are the steps do we take to protect that for them?
Well, a lot of times, if they haven't done anything before they got married, at this point, it's all getting. Texas is very clear cut. It's all going to get divided. So the big thing is, if you have assets and all that, you really need to start talking to like a business advisor, trying to understand like what happens during a divorce is also very important. But prenuptial agreements are really the biggest game changer. That's the main thing that you can do to protect your assets, putting, I mean, I don't want to say that, but some people will put assets in other people's names so that if they go through a marriage, it's not their asset. They're renting their dad's house.
So they were cheering. It was an athlete. There's an athlete.
The soccer player.
Oh,
was it a soccer player? Okay. So
I saw this
he
one.
Was it the one that was depositing the money to his mom's account?
Yes.
So he moved everything to his mom's name.
Exactly.
To his mom's name.
Wow.
Yeah, he didn't move it.
No,
but
I was just
he
gonna
didn't move it because of the divorce. He was
always doing it. But I think the girlfriend or the wife was not really. She didn't know. She probably thought she had. He has that somewhere in a bank account, so I'm gonna get half of it. But then she found out she was not getting anything.
Yeah, and then they got back together. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
They got back together.
Wow.
Yeah, but he still won't put it on her name.
No, probably not now. Probably not now. No.
She kind of caused it for herself.
Yeah, I remember that case.
Yeah. He was. I didn't know he was.
That happened after
Yeah.
the World Cup, the last World Cup.
It was around that time.
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah, that happens a lot. We had one situation where I do think this guy kind of shot himself a little bit in the foot, but in where he had a girlfriend, right, and he was like, I just want to make sure. He had a girlfriend, and then he was leaving his first lady, and that's fine. She didn't get any of his stuff. Then, because he put everything in his girlfriend's name, and then he married his girlfriend, and then now they're separating, and then the girlfriend's like, "This is mine. You put all of this in my name." Wow. So just make sure if you're gonna do that, give it to like your mom or something, not the next lady that you might even end up divorcing. Do not do that. Do not do that.
Okay, I got another one for you.
He's going through a list.
Yeah. So, say you have a client and he is a trust fund baby.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And he gets married to this girl, and they have 4 or 5 year marriage, and now they want to get divorced. Is she entitled to anything within that trust fund?
No. So wills, trust, estates, like inheritance, gifts, all that is separate property. But they have to make it very clear. Like sometimes people will get married, and in some like Indian weddings, they will give jewelry.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of jewelry. Yeah.
A lot of jewelry, like really expensive jewelry. And they, that's a gift in the marriage. So but sometimes I hear you guys, they have like certain contracts already written out. But what I'm saying is, unless you have something explicitly stating this jewelry is a gift for my daughter alone, that is going to be a community asset that gets divided.
So generally that's a dowry or the meher that comes in.
Yeah.
So you give your future wife gold coins or whatever.
Yeah. Or we'll get parents that have given like their daughter, here's $50,000 to put on a down payment on a house, and they do it during their marriage, and then later she's like, but that was a gift to me. It's like, unless the check said this is specifically for my daughter, it's going to get divided. So
we had something like that, remember? But they got it from both parents.
If you're going to give a check, make sure you put on there gift to my daughter alone or gift to my son alone. It's got to be very explicit.
Very explicit. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a surprise for a lot of people.
I didn't bring my notepad.
Imagine seeing that on the check, like you're being the...
Oh, yeah. You're like, wait a minute.
No, but this is awesome advice you've given me, because I'm so involved also within wealth management, and we deal with a lot of clients where we do advise getting a trust for their kids. Now the kids are now coming to age, and within the trust you define, X amount has to go to their marriage to support their marriage, and X amount has to go towards their education and towards their first down payment for the house, and so that's so important to know that that spouse they're marrying has no entitlement to that. Whatever was stipulated within.
I think it's very important when it comes to like a parent gifting, especially their kids, right? Because you don't know, you're not choosing this other person, right? That person did, your daughter or your son did. So it's very important to know how you can gift something where it's securing them specifically, and not just like a marriage kind of deal. Because I've seen it a lot in even like in our culture, where they're like, okay, you don't want a big wedding, that's okay, we'll like get you money so that you can purchase a home. And a lot of times it is like they buy real property with that gift, and it's like, okay, but at the end of the day it's both of their property, right?
Or sometimes they buy real property, not even with a gift, they just buy real property and it's like in another country. I don't know if you guys have dealt with that.
Yes.
Like they'll be like, he has a couple houses in Mexico, and I'm like, okay, and like can we divide those up? I'm like, no.
Different law,
because it's a different law. And I tell them, like, even if I were to get you an order, which I'm not going to be able to, but even if I were, you can't then take this to Mexico, and be like, hey, this house needs to be divided the way the United States. So they're gonna be like, no, absolutely not. We've got sovereignty.
No. But now wait. There's a nuance to that, or there's an anomaly to that. So when you become a U.S. citizen, right, unlike a citizen of any other country. So right now I hold a South African passport, a U.S. passport, and I got my residency in UAE.
Wow.
So when it comes to that, my domicile tax is paid in the US. So all my worldwide income, or anybody else in that scenario, all the worldwide income has to be reported to IRS.
Yes, reported, yes, right?
Okay, so
we
wouldn't
can't
that fall now, because I'm reporting it and I'm filing jointly? Wouldn't that fall in the realm of community of property?
The judge will take into account that there is a home out there and
or assets out there, or whatever.
Yes,
whatever.
But he can't order anything to be done with them. He can't order them to be sold. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
it's more like that, where they're like, can we sell it? Can we divide that up?
But you do send someone else to kind of do the evaluation, maybe, of someone, because I had someone, and they had to go and evaluate. I don't know if it was some type of appraisal or whatever, but they went to evaluate like the property in Mexico, because it was like a divorce kind of deal. And so they were like, no, like, this is not, I'm not selling this. This is, from my parents gifted to me or whatever. However, it wasn't specified or anything like that at the end of the day. So somebody did go out there and, took a look at the property and I'm assuming it was just to kind of come up with the value maybe. So it's interesting.
I don't know how they do it out there in Mexico. I don't know. We also have process servers that go and serve people out in Mexico and stuff. So I don't know, but everything can get done out there still.
Yeah.
So.
Is it? Huh?
You what?
Can't go hide out there.
No.
No. You're not you, Frankie. You need to go to the South Pole or something.
That's funny. Man. Oh my God.
But anyway, Rosio, thank you so much.
Yes.
It was an absolute fabulous chat with you.
Yes.
We need to do it again.
I got a lot of more questions actually.
I'll send you a bill later. Don't worry.
She's going to turn the bottle like this.
I was just going to ask, are you going to charge us for this?
She's going to bring the cup next time.
Yeah, I should have brought the cup. Yeah.
Even turn it as he's questioning it.
Yeah.
We could turn it.
No, but it was fantastic having you.
No, you guys too.
To learn your insight and thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yeah,
and
that's good information.
It's great information, things we can take back to our clients.
Exactly.
And
that's the purpose of it. Yeah, that's
and I
really
think the
purpose.
purpose for the podcast and so on is purely educational.
Yeah.
Where now people can learn and listen and take some advices and notes to see what to do, what not to do. Everybody sign a prenup, please.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes life easy. Yeah, especially for Rosio.
That just on your dating questions, you're like, would you sign a prenup? Like that should be question number one. Are you against the prenup?
Exactly.
Because if so, next, just like keep it going.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Any last final tips you got for our listeners in regards to marriage or
Yeah, I
what
mean,
to
just
expect from?
like you said, there's so many people out there that can get you connected. If you don't know something, you
Yeah.
can you guys are so well connected, so you can reach out to someone and just get informed before you make a decision, because you never know your rights until someone tells them of you, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know everything. We all have different things that we know in our own areas of whatever
Correct,
it is
yeah.
that we do. So you're very well versed in yours, but we at least know who can get you to those
Exactly.
answers that you're
Exactly,
looking at.
yeah,
So the
yeah.
best thing is, if you don't know something, do not just Google it. Okay,
Exactly,
Google is not
yeah.
always your friend. Wikipedia is not. That is written by people that do not know. Literally, just talk to somebody that is in the field that can get you to an expert that does it. That's really the big.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic for the tip. Thank you so much.
That's
Take
awesome.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching today's episode of It's Go Time. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and leave comments on all of our channels. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're on YouTube, and don't forget our Instagram and Facebook pages as well.